Nobody bats 300 anymore because the value of hitting a fly ball, which could eventually become a home run, is so much more valuable. It's when the shift in the NBA went from 2-pointers to 3-pointers. Well, if I can make 40% of my threes, I'm just going to jack threes all over the place. There's more value in that. Well, there's more value in just like ripping driver most of the time.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
Ole Miss got left at the altar, and Ole Miss decided, I'm either going to let her continue to embarrass me, or I'm going to have some self-respect and kick her ass out the door and lock it behind her and not let her back in. And that, for me, is the right thing to do. Lane Kiffin had the right to leave. Yep. He chose to leave. I wish you the best of luck. Not really.
The Craig Carton Show, only on SportsGrid.
You take a look at it, you say, all right, well, can they do this? But the one thing I know, every year I love the SEC championship game. Like this year, we're going to get a pretty good treat in the Big Ten because you have Indiana and Ohio State. But every single year, it's never like I don't have to watch that. Because the reason I bring that up is there's a game that's going to be on 8 o'clock that probably should just be played at midnight or 1 a.m. The ACC championship game. Like, things are not the same.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
It's stunning to think that, right? And I had the over on the win total, or going into the year with the Patriots, was 8.5. I thought they could win 10 games. They've already won 10 games. And that is a stunning turnaround, to go from worst to first here. And they're not the only team that could do it. The Jaguars could do it too. They are right on that precipice here if they handle their business against the Titans the next couple weeks and, at least split between the Indianapolis Colts, those two games.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
A big college football weekend, plus how the Pats became the best team in the NFL. FOS Today starts now. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Front Office Sports Today, your look inside the stories shaping the business and culture of sports. I'm Baker Machado at FOS Studios here in New York City, and this podcast is brought to you by Invesco QQQ. Changing the game has always been our game. You can access NASDAQ 100 companies in just one ETF, Invesco Distributors, Inc. Now, coming up, we chat with Olympic snowboarder Scotty James, and we preview a huge college football championship weekend. But let's start with how New England went from basement dweller to the best team in the NFL. This is my conversation with former Pats QB Brian Hoyer in today's main event. Take a look. Hey, welcome back, everyone, to Front Office Sports Today. I'm Baker Machado here in New York City, and it's been a very good year for the New England Patriots. The number one team in the AFC just had Drake May announced as the AFC Player of the Week. Plus, just this week, Robert Kraft and Bill Belichick, the co-architects of New England's big dynasty, were named finalists for the Pro Football Hall of Fame's class of 2026. So to talk the Patriots, the NFL, and so much more, let's bring in former Patriots quarterback and 15-year NFL veteran, Brian Hoyer. Brian, good to have you here. So let's first start with the reaction to the Belichick, Robert Kraft news. Do you think they're deserving of this honor?
I mean, without question. Look, Mr. Kraft, with the foresight to trade for Bill Belichick, I don't think a lot of people know that. I mean, obviously he resigns on a napkin and is going to New England.
We know the fallout. We just forget the beginning
That's right.
part of
and
it.
so, no, look, I mean, for me, and people may call me biased or a homer, having been around that organization for as long as I have, they are so deserving. I think it would be pretty unique and fitting, especially with how things ended, that they go in together. I think that's the one thing, having been in New England for all those years, you realize when I would walk around and you'd see Mr. Kraft and you'd see Bill and you'd see Tom, like they're all going to be there for each other's days, right? Tom gets inducted to the Patriots Hall of Fame and Bill is there, right? And so I think it would be very fitting for them to go in together.
Even Brady's roast, they were there for that too.
Right.
So even more, big deal. I mean, obviously you've had an extensive stint, 3, I believe, with the Patriots. What is it about this team this year that's maybe different? Going from basically a basement dweller last year to where they're at now, the number 1 seed in basically all of the NFL right now.
Yeah, you know what? There's similarities to the teams that I was on, but they do it their own way, right? Vrabel's not trying to be Belichick. Drake May's not trying to be Tom Brady, even though he's running the same offense. I think that's one thing that maybe the national media has not looked at is how Josh McDaniels coming back for his 3rd stint. So he and I have
everything
a
good
something,
in 3s.
That's right. Has just the effect that he's had on that offense. And the one thing I would say, You know, I didn't play with Mike, but he was a coach in Houston when I played in Houston, and he's an alpha dog. Like he is going to go in and he's going to say, this is the way we're going to do it, and the team has really embraced that. I mean, when your head coach is getting into scuffles in training camp, he still wants to be out there. He's too old, right? So now he's coaching, and the guys love him, and they've responded by playing kind of to his style when he was a player, and it's really been amazing to watch, especially still living there, covering the team. It brings me joy watching them in those post-game celebrations, because you can tell they're playing for each other, which was a big thing from when we played there, and they're having fun doing it.
Which is all the difference. You mentioned Josh McDaniels. It seems like he's been one of the biggest additions as the offensive coordinator. Why is it, I mean, maybe you could look at this from your whole NFL experience, but why is it some coaches are just exceptional coordinators but just can never make it as a head coach? I mean, Vic Fangio is another prime example of this.
I think it's hard in the NFL, and I would say in two positions, right? The head coach and the quarterback, to, if you don't do it quickly enough, they're ready to move on.
Right.
And they will come up with any excuse. And I was in Vegas when Josh was fired, and that was a bit of a raw deal.
Because it was so fast.
It was, and I was there, and I looked around, and I'm like, God, I love this. This is the best parts of New England. Plus, I'm not having to get yelled at by Bill Belichick.
Weather's
Josh is
pretty
the head
nice
coach,
too.
the weather, the facilities. And so, you know, I think for those two positions, head coach and quarterback, it's about everything around you as well. Obviously, you play a big role. I played quarterback. You know, you're not going to blame other people, but when you see guys like Vrabel getting a second chance, and here he is, and he's turned them around as quickly as he can, you look at quarterbacks like Baker Mayfield and Daniel Jones and Sam Darnold. Sometimes it's about being in the right place at the right time.
True.
And so I still believe that Josh could be a tremendous head coach. I mean, I followed him all the way across the country to go play with him at the end of my career. So it's great to see him out there. And the one thing that I've noticed is just the joy that he has coaching and being out there. I mean, when you're not doing it for a year, you realize how much you appreciate it. And so even every once in a while, I'll text him and say, just, you know, love seeing you out there having fun and smiling. And man, he's done a tremendous job. And you know, I don't want to give him all the credit. Drake May has just been incredible, and I got to cover him his rookie year. It wasn't a great situation, but I always came away impressed with the way he handled himself in those situations, the way he carried himself. And even now, I mean, you mentioned the win over the Giants. I was there in the stadium, MVP chance, and he's deflecting. He's like, "Oh, that's for Vrabel. That's not for me."
Right.
Or, you know,
because I don't have to. I'm not the head coach.
That's
Let
right.
him take the heat for
Yeah,
this.
exactly. So he's been tremendous, and it's hard at times to remember he's only 23 years old.
Yeah. A lot has been made about the Patriots' schedule. They have the easiest schedule, especially the rest of the way. So likelihood, you know, of them keeping the number one spot in the AFC seems pretty high. What's your take on that? What do you say to people who say, oh, the Patriots are only doing so well because their strength of schedule is the lowest?
Yeah, I kind of think it's actually disrespectful for the rest of the league. Like, they were going to play the Giants this Monday night, and as a former player, I never went into a game and thought this is going to be an easy game. Like, you look across the field on defense, they got Brian Burns with 14 sacks. They got, Abdul Carter, albeit he was suspended. Like, they have players too. And if you don't bring your A game, you can get beat. I mean, the Rams lost to the Panthers, right? And so I get in this argument with the producer of our podcast, Danny Healy, all the time, because he's like, I mean, I'm really excited about the Patriots, but they haven't played anybody yet. I go, this is not college football where you go out and schedule, some small Division I AA school as a warm-up. You're playing NFL teams, and ultimately, there's nothing they could do about it anyways. And one of the great lessons I learned from Bill Belichick, every year when we would get to the playoffs, he would kind of give this spiel, and it would be like, look, just because you had this record in the regular season doesn't guarantee you anything in the playoffs. Just because you may have more experience than the team we're playing, that means nothing. All that matters is execution. And I would say, if anything, regardless of who they've played, they've actually gotten better as a team. And they've dealt with some injuries lately. Milton Williams, they lose Will Campbell, Jarrett Wilson, and they actually, I thought, played one of their most complete games against the Giants. And so, people can say that all they want. It's all hypothetical. And so until they go and play that first playoff game, we won't know anyways. And so I think for them, they've done a good job handling it and saying, we're just going to play the team that's on the schedule ahead of us.
I want to switch gears and talk college football. You're a Michigan State guy,
Yeah.
so let's talk Big Ten here for a moment, and specifically Michigan State. obviously upgrades in facilities. Pat Fitzgerald now going to become the new head coach there. What do you think, given the fact that he has a great extensive record as the winningest coach in Northwestern history, but the Big Ten is so hard. The Big Ten is incredibly difficult.
Yeah, I'm super excited to have Coach Fitzgerald. He was the opposing coach when I was at Michigan State on the other sideline at Northwestern, and I always respected him, and actually, happened to get his number after it was announced and texted him. He called me right away. He said,
"Oh, wow.
Hey, this program, we're going to get it back to where you guys can be proud, back to where you guys establish it, especially under Coach D'Antonio." And that meant a lot to me as an alumni. And so he's doing the right things. He's saying the right things.
Really quickly, Penn State doesn't have a coach.
Yeah.
I'm sure, as a Michigan State guy, that's interesting to see that. But there has been talk, especially from Ben Roethlisberger.
I saw that.
Maybe Mike Tomlin should be the head coach there. What do you think?
Yeah, it's interesting. People don't usually know this about me, but I did spend 3 weeks playing for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I came away so impressed. Even to this day, people ask, who was one of your favorite coaches? And I said, I only had him for 3 weeks, but Mike Tomlin was. I just really respected him, the way he went about.
That 3 weeks was that big?
It was.
Wow.
You got to remember, I went from Bill Belichick, and the first coach after that was Mike Tomlin, and I was like, well, this guy's won Super Bowls too, albeit not as consistent. There's different ways to do it, but he was very, motivating, but also had a way of connecting with the players that I just wasn't used to. And so, look, he's been there a long time. Sometimes a new face in a new place is beneficial to all parties involved. So it'll be interesting. The Steelers are not one organization to move on quickly. I think they've had 3 coaches in the last 70 years or something like that.
It's insane. So it sounds like, as a Michigan State guy, you don't want Mike Tomlin coaching.
No, definitely not. Yeah, no, not for that land grant trophy. Yeah.
Brian, thank you so much for joining us, and congratulations on all the success. And we got more Front Office Sports today headed your way. Stay with us for more on the business and culture of sports.
They have a bigger talent pool potentially, and they're going to give them anything it takes to potentially get this team back to a national championship. And if you want to set a legacy, you could maybe have one good year at Ole Miss and maybe potentially, 5 or 6 9-3 campaigns, but you're not going to make the playoff each and every season, or at least that's the mindset. You have a better path at LSU or a bigger school.
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
You're a 1 o'clock guy again, huh?
Well, I didn't know I have to appease you.
What do you mean appease me? I'm trying to get a read on you.
Well, that's it. I don't want you to get a read. I think.
Okay.
What are you? You're on me like flies on rice.
Well, I once watched you destroy an NFL team's season because you zagged so hard in the Best Bet segment.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
Everyone has just been lying about this whole thing. Okay. Of the top 15 teams in the country, there are 4 total losses to unranked football teams. Miami has half of them.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Florida was thought to get Lane Kiffin, but they go and turn to Tulane head coach John Summerall. This is a solid hire, coach.
He's a tough-minded coach. I thought he would be a perfect fit at Auburn, just knowing he's from Alabama. But I think Florida got an outstanding coach. He will be a tough nut that knows how to win football games.
The Bowden Blitz, only on SportsGrid.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Front Office Sports Today. I'm Baker Machado, and now more of our look inside the rise of Polymarket and Kalshi with Dan Roberts. Take a look.
The question that I explored in the piece is this social media strategy and voice and trolling and immature toilet humor at odds with their very serious, legitimate business growth? And it depends who you ask, right? I think if you ask normies, they go, oh my God, how can a serious company post this? But their target demographic and user base is the terminally online, young, fratty males who gamble and maybe also who like crypto. And, that's why I talk about the Venn diagram overlap between multiple spheres, right? It's crypto, it's trading stocks on your phone with a swipe of a finger, it's being online on Twitter and Instagram, and it's sending memes to your friend. And it's the culture now. It's internet culture. So I think that they kind of think, the joke's on you. And there's a little bit of political tie in here too, right? Which is that to me has been the tenor of the past few years in politics too, which is go cry about it, wuss. You think you're scandalized by these jokes? Go cry about it, ha ha ha, because we're winning and we're funny, lol.
Is there a way that these prediction markets are news organizations?
They certainly are trying to be. I didn't dive into this as much in my piece, but both also try to post breaking news.
Yeah. Polymarket and Kalshi both tried to predict elections and all of this.
Well, that's on that's their whole product. But
Yes.
I mean, even on social media, their official accounts tweet as if they're those accounts that tweet Bloomberg terminal headlines.
Right.
And they'll tweet headlines. Very often, in both cases, they've had things that are just wrong, just fake news. So what are you supposed to think? And they don't seem very apologetic about that. So I don't know. It's all getting mixed and mingled, right? Like, haha, we're joking, and we're saying these two are, but also we're trying to tweet breaking news. And again, it's all just engagement farming. I think there's nothing more serious to it or surreptitious than that. There's no shady secret. It's like, yep, they think it's funny, and they think it's working for their companies and for their user acquisition to be funny and troll.
This does harken back to not even 10 years ago, before 2018, before the Supreme Court legalized gambling. DraftKings and FanDuel, and sort of the ride of both of them on a state-by-state
History
basis
repeating.
in terms of the legalities of are they sports gambling or are they just daily fantasy sports? How the similarities between these companies and that? Do you see the parallels?
Absolutely. And DraftKings and FanDuel, very similarly, as you say, state AGs, attorneys general, were going after them in court. This was before 2018 legalization, when they weren't gambling companies, they were DFS, daily fantasy sports. And the states were saying, your fantasy contests look to us like gambling. You're doing illegal gambling operating. And they said, no, it's fantasy and it's a game of skill. It's not a game of chance. It's not gambling. And they were fighting all these tooth and nail legal battles. And then 2018, flip gets switched. Federal, government, Supreme Court strikes down PASPA, which was the ban on sports betting. And common misconception here, that didn't make betting suddenly legal all over, everywhere, instantly. It just meant that now states could legalize sports betting if they wanted. And as we know, many or most states did. 40 states now out of the 50 have legalized. And those two companies instantly moved to be gambling companies. And they also, after being so head-to-head competitors, they announced they were going to merge briefly. That didn't last long. 6 months later, they said, never mind, we're not going to merge. Very similar here, where these two companies, if you talk to people from each, they hate the other and they'll trash the other. But they're basically the same. They're offering the same exact products and they have the same exact social media strategy. The key difference I see is Polymarket is the one that really is a crypto company and was born in crypto.
Because you can only trade on crypto.
And they take great pride in that. Yeah. Shane Copland was really a crypto guy before Polymarket. And so, they look pretty similar. Do they eventually merge? Do they sell to a larger company? But of course, now their valuations are becoming plenty big. I mean, we talk about the big dogs as if these other companies, they're becoming the big dogs. So I don't know how this plays out, and I don't know where they'll be in 5 years, but I think they're quickly getting too big and expensive for a bigger player to just buy them.
Okay, so that segues perfectly into our last sort of question here. Obviously, FanDuel, DraftKings getting into the prediction markets now. FanDuel doing that specifically, just announcing that just within the last few weeks.
Yep.
Is there room for all of these players together, the Kalshi, Polymarkets, FanDuel, DraftKings? Do you see a merger happening, or something else? What happens here?
Well,
or do FanDuel and DraftKings just continue to stay number one?
Yeah, and not to get too in the weeds, but one thing that's positive for both is some of these bigger players that say they're launching their own are actually doing it using Kalshi or Polymarket's tech on the back end. So, for example, DraftKings acquired Railbird. Railbird was a prediction market, but not in sports. And now they say they're going to launch sports predictions using Railbird. Well, Railbird on the back end settles its transactions using Polymarket's exchange, or settles its odds using Polymarket's exchange. So it's almost like liquidity begets liquidity, right? They've got all these key partners. Crypto.com is launching one that uses one of the two. And then you've got Robinhood and Susquehanna are launching their own. They're launching their own because they bought a different crypto exchange that, by the way, crypto crazy trivia for you, used to be owned by FTX, which collapsed. So Robinhood and Susquehanna acquired this other thing, LedgerX. They're going to use that to be a predictions market, but Robinhood is a partner of Kalshi on the back end. And by the way, the Robinhood partnership is really key to Kalshi's huge growth in sports, as they have this college football predictions market using Robinhood that Robinhood promoted. So both companies have made a lot of hay thanks to their key partnerships. And that, they're also going head to head in gobbling up partnerships. One's got StockX, they've both got NHL, one's got pickleball, one's got padel. I mean, it's crazy to keep track of. So they're not all going to succeed. I don't think a big player could really buy them. They're too expensive now with all their funding. So what ends up happening? Does, DraftKings or FanDuel launch something that's a joint venture with one of them? I don't know how it goes, but Ben Horney has done a list of these. We're up to like 10 or 11 or 12 that have either launched a predictions market or stated they plan to. They're not all going to work. In 6 months, there aren't going to be 10, 11, 12, so we'll see.
You mentioned in your story a lot of the partnerships that Kalshi and Polymarket have, specifically the NHL, I think is the biggest of the leagues in there. But
UFC.
Yes,
Polymarket, UFC,
but
big
no,
one.
but no NFL, no NBA.
Right.
Those obviously two of the most betted on sports out
Huge.
there. Do you foresee a situation where the NFL or the NBA partner with one of
Well,
them?
I can
or do
tell
they
you-
stay with their
Yep.
traditional partners, the
Yep.
DraftKings? and
Well,
FanDuel?
you're certainly right, Demand. This is a great point. I didn't get into this in the story, but you know, it's a great follow-up. The NFL, of course, was the longest holdout against legalized sports betting, and then once the water was clear, you know, they were biding their time. They went all in, and they're just as deeply enmeshed and tied to all this as all the big leagues. But they really held out. Protect the shield. They're so image conscious. I can tell you for sure that the NFL does not love these social media posts, and that they would be very hesitant to get in bed with Polymarket or Kalshi if these type of social posts continue. There's just no way. You know, Christian McCaffrey loves getting balls, and you know the post about the cop at the Southern Carolina game, and it said he's an old or what is it? I mean, it's in there. I think we showed it. So I would be surprised. NBA could go either way. The NHL is a major get for Kalshi and Polymarket, but it's, you know, the smallest of the big four, right? So a big domino to fall would be MLB or NBA or NFL, you know, making a partnership. But this is the whole tension here that I think is so fascinating, is the social media strategy and the voice and the image and the serious business momentum.
Do you think they have to amend that social media, that messaging if it gets them an NFL?
I don't see either of them changing it anytime soon.
Because it goes against
it would be an admission.
authenticity.
Yes,
of
it would be
who
an
they are.
admission that it was immature and that now it's time to grow up. And they both see this as like, no, we're cool. We're in touch with internet culture.
Interesting. For more on Dan's reporting and Ben Horney's reporting, you can go to frontofficesports.com. Dan, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And stay with Front Office Sports for more on the business and culture of sports.
Let's play our game of buy or sell. Let's get to the quarterbacks for next year. Mac Jones will be an NFL starter to begin next season. He's looked great. Brock Purdy has not. Buy or sell?
You look through the NFL here. Miami, Jets, Cleveland, Raiders. I'm just going
Arizona,
division by division.
Minnesota.
Arizona, definitely. Minnesota, definitely.
Raiders. You mentioned the Raiders.
I mentioned
Can
the
you
Raiders.
just say buy and move on, please, to the next question? Because you know it's a buy.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a buy. It is a buy. He's right. He'll definitely be starting for somebody there, right? He has had a nice season. He'll start for somebody. Jets.
Buy. Gardner Minshew was a starter in the NFL year after year for the next guy in waiting. I mean, this keeps happening. You think that Mac Jones is not going to be a buy? All right. Daniel Jones will finish the season as a better fantasy quarterback than Justin Herbert of the Chargers. Both players, George, have slipped quite a bit in November here.
Broken fibula. No, he's not going to finish better than Justin Herbert. I don't know he's going to finish the season. You got to think if they were playing better, maybe he'd be sitting out a week or two. But they've been struggling, trying to win that division. Big games now against Houston, that they're sort of pushing him in there. No. I know the offensive line for the Chargers is horrific. I get it. But no, I'll say Justin plays a little bit better.
I'm buying it. I don't like what I see with the Chargers at all. Can't run, can't throw, can't play defense. Feels like Harbaugh's getting a little
Broken
desperate.
fibula.
It's not a tibula. It's a fibula. It's okay. It's okay.
Oh, fine.
I don't know that to be true. Okay. It just sounded good.
Fantasy Sports Today. Friday starting at 3 p.m. Only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back, everyone, to Front Office Sports Today. This podcast is brought to you by Invesco QQQ. In football, changing the game begins with rethinking it, like rethinking how players work on their game. And with wearable technology, advanced analytics, AI, and more, that same innovative thinking that changes the game could also change your portfolio. And Invesco QQQ gives you access to the innovators who are rethinking the world, so let's rethink possibility. Well, it's conference championship weekend in college football, including a prime matchup between top seeds Ohio State and Indiana. So to preview this weekend and chat everything else in college football, let's bring in FOS reporter Amanda Kristovich. So Amanda, good to see you as always. So who do you think really has the most on the line this weekend?
Okay, I'm going to give you an answer that you didn't expect.
Okay.
I'm going to say the biggest games of the weekend are the group of 6 games. And the reason for that is because those are the games that are going to determine who the 1 or potentially 2, given what happens with the ACC, group of 16 gets into the playoff, because the top 5 ranked conference champions get in, right? In addition to several at-large bids. So basically, at this point, the only way a group of 6 team will get in is through their conference championship. So that's what I'm really watching.
Okay, so obviously all eyes are going to be on the Big Ten championship game.
Right.
You know, Ohio State and Indiana, number 1 versus number 2. Obviously, a loss in this, you know, not the biggest thing, because both of these teams are going to be making the college football playoff, but really who might a loss impact that run in the college football playoff differently?
You know, I've really been thinking about this, and I'm actually not sure that there's much of an impact at all, because if you look at the situation last year, the top 4 ranked conference champions got byes. This year, it's the top 4 overall ranked teams regardless of championship. So Ohio State and Indiana, regardless of who wins or loses, not only are they in the playoff, but they're both going to get byes as number 1 and 2. I can't see them dropping, you know, below 4. So I think either way, this is like a bragging rights game.
So let's talk the ACC thing, because this seems to be the biggest sticking point here. You're right. If Duke basically wins, doesn't seem like Duke has a route to get to the college football playoff. Obviously, Virginia, if they win, they would obviously make it. But hanging over all of this is number 12, Miami.
Right.
What happens to Miami? Do they even make the college football playoff here? The ACC commissioners essentially said maybe 2 teams from the ACC could make it, and Miami could be one of them. But how do you sort of see this all sort of playing out here, and does Miami even make it?
I mean, again, you just have to look at the math, right, in terms of who the conference champions are going to be and what the ACC championship does, right? It's tough to really game it out, because again, you have Miami at 12, right? And there are 12 teams that get in, but some of the teams that are going to be in aren't 1 through 12 because they are conference champions. So you basically just have to game it out and see which program is going to maybe take that slot, right? And either push Miami out, or they would be left in.
Let's talk about, you know, obviously you're mentioning the group of 6 schools. You have North Texas, Tulane, James Madison, all maybe potentially could be one of those teams that gets in there. But also all 3 of those schools losing those coaches, you know, after this year. By the way, Tulane keeping John Sumrall before he goes to Florida. He's going to coach out the rest of the year here. But what does that sort of tell you? Is it a pipeline thing, or what about these group of 6 schools, and that these schools have these coaches that are leaving?
I mean, look, this happens every year, right? And it happens with players and it happens with coaches. But I think what you are astutely pointing out, with the exception of JMU, who's obviously not in the American Conference,
right?
There were 4 top programs in the American who all lost their coaches over the last week or 2 weeks. And I think that, the American tried to play that up, actually, and tout it as proof that they are in a very strong conference and that they have plenty of talent, right? Obviously others would say, well, maybe that's not a good look for them, because if you lose your coaches, it means that the coaches don't want to stay in your conference. But, I don't. Again, it's like, everything is better in the Power Four. So
really quickly, we're going to get the final college football playoff standings on Sunday. What is going to be the biggest surprise on Sunday that you'll be writing about?
The biggest surprise, well, it's hard. It's hard to answer that question too, because we kind of even know about the biggest surprises, right? We know the different scenarios. I mean, look, the biggest surprise to me is if we see 2 group of 6 teams in the playoff. That is just going to be totally not what any of us expected.
Yeah, and we're going to see it all come through this weekend. Amanda Kristovich, good stuff as always. And while we're at it, let's tell you what we're watching this weekend. And as we mentioned, big stuff, the SEC Championship on Saturday. Number 3 Georgia versus number 9 Alabama. That's at 4 p.m. Eastern on ABC. The Big Ten Championship, number 2 Indiana at number 1 Ohio State. That is at 8 p.m. Eastern on Fox. And then the big NFL Sunday game, the Bears and the Packers. That is at 4:25 Eastern time on Fox on Sunday. And that's going to do it for this edition of Front Office Sports Today. We'll see you back here on Monday.